Hey, welcome back to Pagitt Radio on Wednesday, September 26th. I dig that song. If you just joined us, you might not know we're listening to. Unbelievable.
Twice.
Unbelievable.
Don't people know not to call you?
No, nobody knows not to call me. Nobody cares what I'm doing. They just call whenever they want, especially creditors. They just call all hours of the day. It's just unbelievable.
They figure, oh, we know we can catch them
They don't
now.
care. Yeah, they don't care one bit. They're like, hey, let's ruin the guy's radio show. Let's put him on the robocall. Have him call right now. I got a call the other day from the. This is Doug Pagitt, by the way, and that's Victoria Peterson-Hillique, who's with us here, sitting in for the sidekick, and she might become the regular sidekick. Who knows? Maybe the other guy, John Patrick, is going to have to be the fill-in sidekick. Yeah, maybe he's got important things to do. That guy, you know, big shot and all that he is. I did get a call the other day from the Republicans. Somehow I'm on a Republican list. I'm one. Well, and I think here's why. Because in my life, I like to put it this way: I've been voting for the presidency of the United States since 1984. And as I like to say to my friends, which comes as great chagrin to some people that I know, I've only not been victorious in my voting in one election.
Really?
Yeah. And when someone starts to do the math on that, they're like, hey, what do you mean? Since 1984, there have been Democrats and Republicans who are the president. How is it possible that you have only lost one? Which one was it that you lost? So I voted for Republicans for president. I voted for Democrats for president. So there's people who start doing the math from the 2000s. They're like, you voted for Bush? I voted for Bush twice. And I voted for Obama. I'm going to vote for Obama twice. And I voted for
Bush twice?
I did. And I voted for Clinton because I have my own calculus. And if you ever want to hear it sometime, I'd be glad to tell you. And number one calculus is you don't change horses midstream.
You have to vote for somebody that you voted for in the previous election?
No, you don't. You don't replace the presidency in the middle of a term. I think it's a really bad idea.
You think that they should have to have 8 years?
Well, personally, I think presidential term should be 5 years or 6 years with no re-election.
Okay, well,
that's what I really think.
That's not what we have, but because we don't have that.
So the second best thing is you don't send a message around the world that you vote out a president. Well, no matter.
Bush hardly counted the first election.
Unless there's extreme circumstances, of which I could see that, then I guess there should be a mechanism for this.
Bush's first election wasn't
It wasn't to me. No, especially in the middle of that war. I think that was.
Yeah, but
had it been a year later, I may have felt differently. Had it been a year later, but
this isn't the time for an argument about that.
No, because there's no argument to be had.
I mean, well, a lot of people argue that he started.
He won. I won. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, I just think that's not what one does. So this is why I think I'm on the phone call. I get emails from the current president of the United States begging me for $5. I get these emails 3 times a week. It's unbelievable. I am hardened in my commitments that we should not have presidents of the United States running for re-election just simply because it's so petty to be asking me for $5.
I agree with you.
I hate it. I think it's just it diminishes the whole project of electing a president when the president's out there asking for. And I know they don't want just 5; they want for. But whatever. I mean, I shouldn't have to be chipping in to get the guy to win re-election. It's just we've already elected someone. Then they shouldn't have to come back and say, "Hey, could you guys help me stay in my job?" Oh, it's just the worst. It's the worst form of a bake sale. For to put the roof on the gym that the elementary school wants to do. It makes me crazy. So I get these emails all the time from the president of the United States and from his wife too. I mean, unbelievable. For her too, like she's chiming in. I'm
big
like,
political mover and shaker.
Come on, Michelle.
I don't get those emails.
You do too. You don't get the emails asking you for $5 from the president. You don't get
that many. I get like maybe one every once in a while. Not.
And then, send us some money and we will, maybe you could be in a drawing to have dinner with the president. Like, what is this? Like,
the carrot.
It's just.
Although I would like dinner with the president.
Of course, that's not the point. It's not do I want to have dinner with the president. I would want to have dinner with every president of the United States that there has ever been. Of course, that's great, for sure. But the point being, as a carrot to get me to donate some money so that he can run, so that he can be reelected. It's just the president should not run for reelection, and they should also forego all party affiliation when they become the president. They should be the president above parties. When you become the president, you no longer should be functioning in your role as a political operative.
Well, if they didn't have to get reelected, they could do that.
Yeah, you're going to see it. I mean, you're going to see how Bush was different in his second term. You know, how Clinton was different in his second term. Now, second terms often go badly for presidents, too.
Yes, they usually
right? Because, they do. They don't go well. But we also know that all the angst comes out of the system when they're not running for reelection, and when their vice president, the next one, isn't the next one to run for reelection. And I think that the vice president also shouldn't run for reelection. I think that should just be, you should have to forego that. You get to be the vice president, but then you don't get to run for the presidency yourself. This isn't the world as I would like to have it. So anyway, I get these emails from the current president, but I get phone calls, and I got a phone call the other day from the Republicans asking me, there's an amendment in the state of Minnesota to amend our Constitution. And they want to amend the Constitution to make marriage only between a man and a woman, and to put that in the Constitution as opposed to in state statute. It makes me crazy. But I get this call from these people saying, hey, would you, we understand that you might like to come in on the phone bank with us.
Oh, to call
people to get them to support this amendment.
Oh, how'd they get that understanding? I
don't know. Apparently I'm on a list. I don't know how I'm on this list. I don't know what list it's on. I do not support the amendment. I think the amendment is a bad idea. I don't support it. I'm an independent when it comes to the person I vote for, but I'm quite principled when it comes to the things that I hold to. And the reason I've been able to move between Republican and Democrat is because the Republican and Democrats have been moving on issues. So anyway, and I've thought about taking them up on it. going into the bank.
Like as a secret agent?
Well, calling people and being like, hey, this amendment's coming up. I don't think you should vote for it. Can I get your commitment to not vote for it? Like, they're going to give me a list of names to call Republicans. I think that would be dishonest, though, wouldn't it?
Oh, boy.
But it's
something you would have to atone for, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'd probably have to worry that there was some sort of a God in the universe that was going to try to make right out of such things. But I did think about it. And I only bring that up because one of these calls, I think, are those people that have called. They called this morning.
Again.
They're now starting to call more frequently.
And you can't get off those lists.
I don't know how my number got on the list. I wouldn't have any idea how to get off. I mean, I don't think I could say that.
I can't get off the Republican lists. I mean, I just don't want them to call me. I don't know
how they got my cell phone number.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I don't know what database they've
and
mashed
now it's
up.
like a slippery slope. Like, who knows who else is going to get your number?
Yeah. Well, maybe it's because I was going to say maybe it's because my email, my phone number's on the bottom of my email when I respond to emails, and I always write back to the president after he sends me something.
Take that off.
Yeah. So maybe but then that would be the Democrats who we call it, not the Republicans. So I don't know how they got my phone number. But do you think that's dishonest if I become the guy that goes into the calling bank where they want to support the amendment, and I'm like, well, I don't think you should, but you called me and asked me if I wanted to come in, so I came in.
What, you mean I have to support your position on this?
No, I thought you were asking me. Oh, should I go home? I mean, wouldn't that be a great story? You get kicked out for...
It would be really...
I've done phone calling I did phone calling for 2008 for Obama. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been on the phone banks?
I've done it for a progressive organization sometimes, like MoveOn.org or something.
And it was like asking people if they're going to vote?
Yeah, or like I've done, you know what I've done? What I used to do was voter registration. Because I think that's really important. Like, I think people voting is important, regardless of your party or whatever. So I'd go around. This was back when the kids were really little. I'd be, like, pulling them in their radio flyer wagon around the neighborhood and go make sure people knew where to go and that they were registered, all that. That's one of my more favorite things to do. But I haven't done it in a long time.
In Minnesota, people don't have to pre-register to vote, right? You can register the day of.
Yeah, you can. But then also it was education, like our polling place in my neighborhood, they'd change it around. And so then communicating to people where to go.
Where you go to vote.
Yeah. But then sometimes it's kind of nice if somebody just moved in, then they could get it done. So
You know what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to figure out how on November 6th I can get to Washington, D.C. I'm trying to figure out, I'm
Right.
trying to put together some reason to be there.
if only you knew an airline employee who could give you a
Snap a dizzle.
ticket.
I wish I did.
Yeah.
That would be, well, I can't bring myself to get an airplane without getting miles for it, but I won't even take a free flight because it's like I'm giving up the miles.
Yeah.
But I would really like, because I think this is a blow away for Obama. I think Obama's going to win this election with, 305, 315 electoral votes. It's not even close. And the only reason it's perceived to be close currently is that the media doesn't want to be blamed for the blowout that's about to come.
Why would the media be?
Because if they start saying in the media, look, this isn't even close. There's there's no way Romney gets the electoral college votes that he needs. People will start to say, well, the media was tipping this thing. They were affecting all of this. They were doing all this ahead of time. If they weren't down talking Romney, that whole meme, right? So I think they're trying to be really careful to not overplay it. But I geek out on all this stuff and I follow them. This stuff
So
very closely.
today
And I
they
don't
said
think
on
there's a way he
NPR
could
that
win.
they're both in Ohio, because no president has ever won
No Republican president in the
Oh,
modern era has won
without
the White House
Ohio.
without winning Ohio. But
I didn't think they said no Republican. I thought
Well,
they
it's
said
true.
no president.
no, it's only
Only
a Republican has needed to win it. So the idea being that if Obama wins that state, Romney can't. So in that sense, it kind of functions
It's a chicken egg kind of
almost
thing.
functions the same way, right? Right. So Ohio's a big deal, but he could lose Ohio and still have the electoral college. What they're getting at is very often is if you win Ohio, then you're probably also going to win Iowa, and if you win Iowa, then you're probably also going to win
It's domino.
these other places. And because I remember back in 1996. As you might as well, because we're old people. That I can't remember what Clinton won by, but it was a lot, 386 or something to like 150. I mean, poor Bob Dole.
I know.
It was like he was in that race with one arm tied, but whoops, he only had one hand. But the media. I mean, that day I remember. I think it was like the 4th of November. The media was, and there wasn't all the social media stuff to keep up with then, or the internet really to do this. So all you had was the news, and the news people were still reporting this as if he could pull it out. I mean, you don't know. It's just these polls. The polls aren't always right. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it wasn't even close, and I think that same thing is going on this time. And Obama, of course, isn't going to say that it's not close. I mean, Obama's going to be worried as all get out. Now, I could be wrong. It could be that
Really?
we're
Are
shocked.
you sure?
That we're shocked on this, but if for this to fall off the table at this point, something really bad would have to happen.
Well,
like an aneurysm from the president during the debates where he starts babbling like a crazy man.
Or somebody bombs us, or there's
even that. I mean, look,
you think?
the Doug Pagitt theory of you don't change horses during a crisis would solidify the election for Obama. If there was a terror attack on the United
You're
States,
right.
you think
No, I
somebody's going to
agree.
be like, you know what we ought to do? Let's
Elect
have a new
some-
guy get
yeah.
in there who
No, I agree with you.
8 years ago was the governor,
I
and
agree
other
with
than
you on
that,
that.
just robbed
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Now, if the economy went super south,
Yes.
that would.
It did.
No, I mean, like even more. Like if there was some real. I know.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
something really bad happened
Yes.
economically
I guess so.
between now and then, I think that could tank it, because it's all about how comfortable people are.
Yeah, but
really.
yeah, and there's nothing in the economy that can happen in 5 weeks.
I can't imagine that there is.
Like, so there's this other new statistic out right now saying that of the last 18 presidential elections, the person leading in the polls at this point has won 17 of those.
Okay.
Like going back to Truman. Like the only one, it was Truman
was it
and
that
then
didn't?
Gore.
Gore.
Well, unless you're
Yeah.
people that come from your camp that say, no, he actually
my
did.
camp. No,
He
I have a
actually did.
camp.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, there's history, and then there's the way people tell the history. So it's,
Yeah.
and they're both good. They're both
That election made me want to have mandatory voting for our whole country.
That people should have to vote?
Yeah. They can vote. They can go and abstain, like say, I don't
Really?
pick any of the
Why?
above. Because I think our electoral
about that?
college works better when there's more people. So the fewer voters we have, I think our system doesn't work as well. So why not have the best if we're going to have an electoral college, let's have it work as well as possible.
But isn't voluntary voting the as well as possible?
No.
What? Well, what would be more well about people having to go to a polling place and then
There
pick
might
someone
be
they
some
don't
people
care about?
whose lives who they let their lives get in the way of going to vote, and
Well, you're saying if they were compelled to be there anyway, then they might vote. Where they probably care about who's the president, but their lives aren't so that they can get there.
just make it a little bit, give an extra oomph to get more people to vote, and then we can have a better working system with more opinion, more sense of consensus and ownership as far as who's
Yeah,
there.
I'm with you. I'm with you on consensus and ownership. I just think when your options are really between two candidates,
Well, that's
you
why
really don't have opinion. You really don't
know.
have, like,
And-
you're forced to have to pick this guy or that guy or the third or fifth or seventh person on
Or
the
you
list,
could
who doesn't
say,
win
I
anyway,
don't,
so.
you could choose none of the above. Like in
Sure.
my system, you have to be able to say none of the above. I don't want to force people to pick one of those few candidates.
Then why
I just
would-
want to force people to go and participate.
See, it's funny
think
because
it's good.
I would take it just the other way. Like if someone doesn't have a compelling reason to vote for something or for someone, then they shouldn't.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
think
you're
that
right.
it goes the other way. I think people shouldn't, out of some sense of civic responsibility, be showing up and voting.
Maybe the problem is that in some of my views, that some of the folks that would tend to vote in my direction don't always go. So maybe it's just selfish of me. I want it.
Oh, you're saying that people are predisposed to voting the way you would, and if more of them were there, you would pick up more votes.
Yeah,
Is
maybe
that what you're getting at? Is that what you're getting at? That really, see, this is the tyranny. This is where people feel like it's the tyranny against the majority, right? They feel like everybody really thinks the way I do. So when the other guy wins or the other party wins, it must be because something didn't go right. And I haven't had that feeling since 1992. I mean, it was 1992 when I didn't win an election. I voted for, this was the hardest because I really wanted to vote for Clinton, but I had this sense that you should give the guy a second swing. So I voted
Really?
for Walker. But and that was probably the one I didn't feel best about. Or maybe I only didn't feel best about it because I lost. So I've never had the bad feeling of losing a presidential election. And I have friends. I have really good friends on both sides of who they would vote for. And honestly, I think my friends who are voting for Romney are doing it just simply because they don't want there to be they're not for Romney. No one I know. I really don't know anyone
I don't know
who's
anybody's
I
really
mean,
for-
who says, no, like what he's arguing for, that's what I'm thinking about. See, his ideas, they should be, it's just not that guy, guy for the Republicans who are into that. But I really do get a sickening feeling every time there's a presidential election because a great number of my friends will feel as if their country has failed them. And, I've never had that feeling because, I've won all of these. Well, 1992, I didn't really care about.
Don't
I
put
didn't
me
feel
in that camp either. I just tend to worry that there's certain political options that are going to show less tendency to help the disenfranchised, and certain parties tend to seem more inclined, not always, but sometimes. And so I don't feel like my country has failed me.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, I don't even know if that there's really that much difference all the time.
Yeah, I don't think there is either. In
Presidents.
fact, I even think that sometimes the issues held by the party that's not in presidential power has accomplished as much or more on those issues than when their person's in power. Because what people tend to do is they tend to organize around additional ways or other ways than federal political system to get this to to make the gains that they want to make. So it really, and I'm not talking about tax. There's a few things that the federal government affects, like tax policy and reimbursements to states for caring for the poor and so on. But it's my guess that that's going to stay within a range somewhere.
Right.
Anyway, right? It's going to stay within a range. But I think the range matters. I think it matters that you're at the upper end of that range as opposed to the lower end of that range. It really, really, truly does matter. But I don't think it means that the country doesn't care about the thing that candidate cared about. It just means you have to accomplish it through a different means than the person that's in the presidential in the president's seat. So I actually think there's a way that people who are really issue oriented don't have to get as worked up about the presidency because they're really working broad based on those issues. The people who get really worked up about the presidency are people who tend to not have any other connection to those issues. Right. So they feel like, well, that's the one thing I had was that my person would win, and when they
then
didn't,
I don't have to.
I'm screwed. I've got nothing. What do I have? I'm lost in the wind.
Now the responsibility is back on me again.
Well, yeah, or it's lost. It's not even back on me. Yeah. I wish people would say it's back on me. So what are we going to do?
But I think people are again with the displacing. They put it if my guy is up there.
That's right. Like this is what you see with the Tea Party, which frankly I think the Tea Party people are a real problem. I think that view of federal government has been a problem since the 1770s. Truly, like we've been litigating the question that the Tea Party folks, now Romney and Ryan, are raising. We've been litigating that for 220 years in this country, and I think it's finally time we just put it to bed, but it's not going to happen. So I think I don't think it's legitimate. I think it's silly. But I do think that that movement was emboldened by the victory of Barack Obama. So that movement was really tamped down when Bush was the president. Because they didn't because their guy was the president, and they're like, but he's a tax and spend Republican. He's a compassionate conservative. He's not a small government Republican. So that whole thing got a real boost when the other guy was in office. So the movement did better when it wasn't their guy. And I think that's true across many of these systems, many of these topics, that these movements get going more fervently when you don't have the answer of we won. Because then when you won, then it gets dissipated by all the pressures of having to win, and like, well, it's already your guy, and nobody gives money to the causes of the president, right? Like if you're going to raise money, if you're a political fundraiser, and I'm not one, but I know people who are, the best thing you can do is to have your candidates lose so that you can rally up the disenfranchised feeling people to give money to next time make that bet. Like if you wanted to really give fuel, you can see this having happened with Obama. All the things Obama was behind, people don't care about. They're like, well, he's the president. He should just do that now, right? Like they lose energy as opposed to gaining energy. And so if you're really into topics or policies, you're not as swayed. But when you're just like, well, I wanted that guy to win. And we tie a lot in our society up into these categories of winners and losers and what side I'm on. And it just feels like your people lost when, it's like people yelling about this crazy football game on Monday night, with bad refereeing. Do you know about this? The Green Bay Packers and stuff? Whatever. I mean, I don't care either. But I'm like, seriously? You think it's actually something that other people should talk about because the football league doesn't have good referees? Like, you do realize there is no consequence to this whatsoever. That's my rational brain thinking. My sociologist brain thinking is people find a sense of personal identity and connection in these things, and that's why they care. They don't actually care for any other reason. And politics is one of the places where people can feel like they're sort of inside and outside. All of that because my phone rang.
I know. What are we supposed to be doing here?
Oh, there was all kinds of things we were going to talk about. Well, that's a good thing we're back next week. Next week live, Doug Pagitt Radio, broadcasting live out of the Twin Cities, Spreaker, Ustream, all over the internet, and over at DougPagittRadio.com, where you can become a part of the show. So go. Next time you're sitting around at night, go click around over there at Doug Pagitt Radio at 1 a.m. and see what's on that website. It's going to be totally worth your time. And we will talk to you again next week. Adios.